Another day of practice in Miami Gardens is in the books, and we got lots to react to, from player attendance to Coach McDaniel quotes to something interesting that one of the Dolphins defenders said about a teammate yesterday.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers, because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We don't just say it, we live it. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Today on the show, a really interesting Jaelan Phillips quote yesterday. I want to make sure I gave a little bit of time to. No Tyreek Hill today at practice, and I have some thoughts regardless of what the circumstances end up being for Tyreek Hill. But I want to start with a quote from Mike McDaniel. And we talked a little bit yesterday about some of the defensive coaches and their press availability and breadcrumbs, right? What kind of breadcrumbs these coaches are leaving for how many safeties get on the field. And the Joe Barry champagne problems with too many linebackers, and the depth of the defensive front, and the philosophy of how to maximize all these players, right? We got some breadcrumbs from the offensive coaching staffs, but I think the most notable quote, and I want to give credit to Chris Perkins because he asked the question in this morning's Mike McDaniel press conference, but he got the quote that kind of, it's hard. You talk to Mike, you understand Mike's focused about today. He's focused about this year's football team. Now, he's more than willing to reflect on things that have happened. But it's kind of you've turned the page as the coach. Chris Perkins found the way to ask the question that ties what the Dolphins are experiencing right now to one of the big pitfalls from last year, and bridged it in such a way that Mike McDaniel kind of, I think, gave us a really interesting breadcrumb as far as the ideology of how they've gone about their business versus what's different about it now. And it's a lot of the same things that if you watch film on the players, you can say 2 + 2 = 4. But to get something like this straight from the horse's mouth, it means something to me as I explore this year's team. And what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? How are you trying to go about it? Chris Perkins asked Mike McDaniel about the absence last year of Alec Ingold and Austin Jackson. And once those two went down and got banged up, and Austin was out the second half of the year, and Alec had to play hurt and got really dinged up midseason, the running game fell off a cliff. And Chris Perkins asked Mike McDaniel, you had this experience last year. What did you learn about those players? And how do you assess now that you're in the same situation in training camp right now? How do you assess how you're handling it this year? Because Austin Jackson got stepped on, and it sounds like they're taking some liberties of, we want you to be 100%. We're not going to force you to work through something that might linger otherwise. We expect you to be ready for week 1. And for Alec Ingold, he's in concussion protocol because over the weekend he took a collision and is now in concussion protocol, right? So today's practice was without your right tackle and your fullback. Here's what Mike McDaniel had to say. You learn a lot from problem solving to the reason for those gains. And it's really the displacement at the point of attack. What both those players are really adept at. We use those players in our foundational teaching for the whole group and in trying to get more weapons in the run game. What I've seen thus far is we do have the player foundation here to be able to be better at it in the situation that we were in last year without our right tackle and fullback. I've seen a lot more production block for block and play for play this year versus last. It's a good measuring stick relative to where we were at last year. We had a lot of focus on what made those guys impactful players and applying it to a lot of other people's game. So when we talk about displacement and guys that can move you from point A to point B, and we talk about being more physical with the ancillary players in the skill rooms, and we talk about, kind of this offensive line philosophy that we talked about last year, and it was not, hey, I think this is the right way to do it, but it was, this is how they believe it works, right? And you're looking for pillar players at your tackles and your center, and the philosophy at the time was generally interior play was kind of an ancillary position, and you could coach around it and circumvent it. But as the Dolphins found out last year, when your fullback, your kind of straw that stirs the drink from all the different alignments and motions and angles that he can have from a run game perspective, and your best run blocker, and Austin Jackson, I think, is your best run blocker, misses time. Now that ancillary player at that right guard spot, it becomes a black hole, right? And that's why I think you saw the transition from Kendall Lamb, who was a much better pass protector, to going out and getting Larry Borum. And Mike had talked about Larry Borum and talked about how they saw some traits that could project into this offense. And I know in the pass rush, O-line, D-line one-on-ones, Larry Borum has not impressed in the first 2+ weeks of training camp. And that's not really the area where he's ever going to win. And when you get into game planning, and I still think personally he'd be a better guard than he would be a tackle based off his NFL film at both spots, but they're rolling with him at tackle right now. So you can see the congruency of these were our issues. This is how we chose to approach the finite resource opportunities we had last year to assemble a team. And this was the critical flaws and the critical errors in that approach. How did we choose to do it this time around? And he's talking about more weapons in the run game. And offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen, can be weapons in the run game in the same way that a road grading blocking tight end like a Pharaoh Brown can be a weapon in the running game, just like a physical third wide receiver for when you're playing 11 personnel like Nick Westbrook-Akine can be a weapon in the run game. They got a short yardage runner that can be a weapon in short yardage situations, right? But I hear weapons in the run game, and the first thing I think of when I think about what it was last year and how they used Ingold and Jackson as kind of the teach tape for displacement at the point of attack. And then you see, well, they went out and they got James Daniels, and they went out and they got Larry Borum, and they went out and they drafted Jonas Savaitanai, and they went out and they added Nick Westbrook-Akine, and they went out and they added Pharaoh Brown. Those are all run game players. Like that's where you feel or should feel the most difference from last year to this year. And I think it props you up. I think it gives you a chance to be more versatile. And if you do have a tackle that goes down, who's good in the run game, but the guard can hold his own, now you can use the tight end and the guard to just support the tackle and play with bumpers on either side, and you can keep rolling instead of, if everything that you do is stretch and horizontal flow of the front and of the point of attack, and the play side tackle can't get out there, and he bogs everybody behind him down. And now you got the safety dropping down, and you didn't get enough stretch. So there's a clean alley for him to run, and everybody's bogged down in the cutback lanes. There's nowhere to go with the ball. So I like this quote as far as self-awareness and what we felt was a flaw in the team building philosophy last year that proved to be a fatal issue for the team. Straight from the horse's mouth of how it's different this year. We had a lot of focus on what made those guys impactful players and applying it to a lot of other people's game. I've seen a lot more production block for block and play for play this year than last. We use those players as foundational teaching for our group and trying to get more weapons in the run game. I love it. Absolutely love it. What I don't love is reports of Tyreek Hill not being at practice, and it could be an injury. It could be it's been reported as an undisclosed injury. I don't know if that's a report. I don't know if that's an observation. I know he wasn't overly active during Tuesday's practice. I got some thoughts. We're going to get into it next here on Locked On Dolphins, so make sure you guys stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It is the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. This year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. Here on Locked On Dolphins, we're playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 new features over 28 days throughout the month of August. To kick it off, they've dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, in which the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each and every week until there's just one team remaining. With the new season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. Or if you're more into the classics, you could still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Tyreek Hill, undisclosed injury per the Miami Herald. Not seen at Wednesday's practice. And sounded like he practiced early, had a couple misfires with Tyreek Hill with Tua Tagovailoa on Tuesday, and then was light work, although the Dolphins posted a picture after practice yesterday with Dan Marino talking to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on the practice field. So, and Tyreek had no signs of an injury. So if you had an injury thing that was significant, there would have been an acute incident versus maybe it's a soft tissue injury or a tweak or a muscle tweak that needs a thing. Everybody's taken every direction of this ball and running with it, right? You got people that think there's a trade imminent with Tyreek Hill. You got people that think that he's hurt because he's an older player. You got people think that Tyreek's throwing a temper tantrum because Mike clapped back at him in his press conference with the Devon Achane thing. You got people thinking every possible combination. And there's a very realistic chance that the most logical explanation is the one in which is fact. And that would be Tyreek Hill had a minor tweak or something didn't feel right yesterday. And as a result, he received treatment during practice today and was therefore not at practice. I won't dismiss any of the other possibilities because I don't know anything about it, right? But what I do know is this is the downside now to rolling this back with Tyreek Hill in 2025. And I understand, from what I understand, there was all options were explored in the offseason, and it's tough when a guy's got wrist surgery, so he can't pass a physical, and there's the off the field stuff and the guaranteed money and the way the season ended and his age and the opportunity cost and lots of layers of this onion you would have had to peel through to make any significant change. It's the reality of the business of the NFL. You can't just put a guy up for sale and trade him. You got to get assets back. You got to have somebody that wants to take on the risk. You got to have the player that wants to go to that. There's a lot, right? There's a lot. But in trying to make this thing work in 2025, anytime there is a bump in the road, everybody who's not paying attention to the team is going to see a quote from Tyreek Hill or see a quote from somebody else about Tyreek Hill. And it's the reaction to the latest thing. And there's always a thing with Tyreek. Even when he stayed out of trouble, it was the chirping with Noah Lyles and the 100-meter races. And that, like, whatever you do in your free time is fine, cool, right? But then there's the Twitch streams where we have an offhand comment about Mike McDaniel and everybody picks up on that. And it's just a lot and it's exhausting. And you as a football team are trying to kind of get back to basics, have everybody be focused on football. And Tyreek Hill, for no fault of his own, may have not been at practice today other than like a minor soft tissue injury. And yet everybody is now going to Mike Florio, God bless him, has already got a story up about on Pro Football Talk about Tyreek Hill missing practice after he had a criticism of the coaching on the weekend and talked about how important it was to be at practice. And then he was late for practice and then he missed a practice. And like, yeah, this is the bed that you made for yourself as a football team. But man, is it going to be hard And there's no better embodiment of this, people are going to pay attention to and catch, and not fans of the team, but people are going to pay attention to and catch whatever they want when it's convenient, when it's I was at Mike McDaniel's press conference 11 days ago when Mike McDaniel had the offhand comment where somebody said good morning, and he said, no, it's a great morning. Why is it a great morning, Mike? It's how he'll be best. Why is it a great morning, Mike? He said, because today's you're another day closer to death. And it was a part of like Mike's ad libs and quirky phrases at the start of a press conference, and he always keeps everybody on their toes. 9 days after he said it, it gets put up on social media, and Adam Schefter's like, oh, gloom and doom from Miami today. And he said it 9 days ago. And then Schefter edits the tweet, and it goes viral, and it blows up. And Armando Salguero's talking about, thanks, Mike. And everybody has this like hyper reactive thing to this thing that's blowing up that was over a week old that nobody knew existed because they're not paying attention to the Dolphins until something gets thrown out of context up in front of their face. And the Tyreek Hill situation of that, because the Dolphins have the culture critiques that they have, and a lot of it's deserved. I can't dispute that. Just like the Tyreek Hill mess and the Tyreek Hill circus, and Tyreek misses a practice, or Tyreek's going to the bathroom and is laid out for stretch and everybody pans on Tyreek. It's the bed that he's made with his behavior. It's the bed that the Dolphins have made by making the commitment. And I get it, but man, does it get old. It just gets old. To not have the focus be on, hey, what are we doing at practice today? You know? Hey, what happened at practice today? And not focused on the latest hypercritical reaction to your oft maligned receiver that is on thin ice because he put himself on thin ice with how he handled the end of season stuff last year, and the team is chosen at this point to run it back. And maybe it is all those things, maybe it is what the deeper meanings are. I don't know that for sure, but I would love nothing more than to just kind of put it in the box, put it off to the side. Okay. What about this year? What about this year? Instead of like, it was making sure I don't have any breaking news popping through your own push notifications. Bart Scott was on ESPN talking about where are the leaders in Miami. Did we not just have a whole bunch of segments a week ago about Tua Tagovailoa's comments about Tyreek Hill and holding him accountable? But Tyreek Hill said something over the weekend, so where's the leadership in Miami? Just like how many balls can we keep in the air and at the same time? The Tyreek Hill charade continuing to be a thing, whether it's Tyreek Hill's fault or it's nobody's fault. As far as this individual incident, it just feels like it's destined to, anytime anything is said or seen that has any room for interpretation, this Dolphins team is going to get put through the ringer about it, at least until the football games start. But I'm ready for it to be over. Jaelan Phillips heaped a hefty amount of praise on one of his teammates who has never played an NFL snap. Who is it? And what did he say? That's next here, Locked On Dolphins. I got some thoughts there. Stick with us. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt on the beach. FanDuel gives you a bunch of different ways to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes you feel like you are part of the action. Right now on NFL futures over on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, if you're feeling the Dolphins, and not a lot of people are, but some people are, but if you're feeling the Dolphins, their conference championship winning odds right now currently sit plus 4,000. It's sandwiched between the Patriots and the Raiders. The Raiders, you can miss me with. I think the Dolphins have better odds than a couple of the teams sitting in front of them. Do I think the Dolphins win the AFC Championship this year? No. But the Dolphins' odds for the East currently sit at plus 700. So if you think the Dolphins, this is the year the breakout happens and you win the division, you can get it at plus 700 over on FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can take $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. So Jaelan Phillips spoke yesterday, and he talked about the injury that he had to make sure everybody knew that he was okay. But he also talked about some of the depth in the room. He talked about Quentin Bell and was really complimentary of the way that he goes about his work and how he's really close to him. But he bestowed somebody the title of the best pass rusher on the team. The best pure pass rusher on the team, in my opinion, Jaelan Phillips said. And it wasn't Bradley Chubb. It wasn't Jaelan Phillips. It wasn't Chop Robinson. It was second-year undrafted rookie free agent Grayson Murphy. And if this raises your eyebrows, it should. It's a very lofty statement. But in the crosshairs of if your top three edges are Chubb, Phillips, Chop, Quentin Bell, who's number 5? Is it Muhammad Kamara? Is it Derek McClendon? Is it, would you put Willie Gay in that bucket for some of your sub-package stuff? Grayson Murphy having this kind of recognition from a former first-round pick as one of his teammates carries a lot of weight for me. And I think about Murphy and the way that he flashed in the preseason last year. And then I think about his profile out of UCLA, and he was originally at North Texas as a 3-star and transferred to UCLA. And he had more than 50 pressures and a 17.5% pressure rate across his 2 seasons at UCLA that he played. And I think Phillips might have a point here from a instinctive feel perspective, because Jaelan Phillips was a 5-star. Chop Robinson was a 5-star. Those guys are guys that for longer and later into their pro careers, and Chop really, I think even at Penn State, this was applicable, just relied on elite physical abilities to win reps, out-athlete you. It's the silver spoon concept of how early do you bloom as a player. And a lot of these 5-star kids, they have a certain margin in which they can play the game. And they don't have to learn how to be technically proficient or technically profound. It's the J.J. Watt thing. J.J. Watt was like a 2-star tight end and developed himself. Zach Sealer has developed himself into a technician because he had to, because he was undersized, late bloomer, Division II football player. Grayson Murphy and Bradley Chubb had 34-inch arms with elite heavy hands, right? And that's how he won and got by. Quentin Bell was formerly an offensive player until late in his college career and then made the transition. Murphy had to become a technically profound player at the position and the cerebralness in which he played in the same way, because he didn't have elite physical traits. He had good athletic profile, but he has, there's outliers, and then there's where Grayson Murphy is from a pass rush perspective, from a length perspective. He has 30.5-inch arms. That is 0th percentile for defensive ends to come through the NFL Combine since 1999. He has a 76-inch wingspan. That is 2nd percentile. He is second lowest of every 100 edges that has come through the NFL Combine since the year 1999 from a length and wingspan perspective. So when you don't have that, how do you make it to the NFL? How do you go from a 3-star small school kid out of Texas going to North Texas and then transfer to UCLA and have 50-plus pressures 2 seasons at UCLA and then go undrafted because teams take you off the draft board because you have a non-starter threshold for your length, and still make, like, he'd have been in a position to make the team last year, I think. How do you get to that point? It's here. It's your instincts. It's your pass rush plan. So when Jaelan Phillips says Grayson Murphy's probably the best pure pass rusher on the team, it's because of the pass rush plan. It's because of the technique. It's because of the reactive quickness. It's because of the understanding of, I can't just be better than you physically. I have to have another way to win. It's like the quarterbacks that don't have the strongest arm, right? They have to learn how to throw with better accuracy and better anticipation if they're going to continue to progress and reach the highest levels of play and have successful careers, because they can't sit there and wait on it and wait. Okay, here's the break. Okay, yeah, he's open. Now let me throw it and hammer it in there. I don't have the arm strength to play that way. Grayson Murphy has some of that going for him, and you could see it on his college tape. You could see it against Atlanta in the preseason last year. And now Murphy, who was hurt with a knee injury last year and went on injured reserve and was carried through the season last year as an undrafted rookie, getting that title bestowed on him from Jaelan Phillips, I'm watching closely because I think he got room for another edge. Is it Cam Good from a special teams perspective? Is it Muhammad Kamara because he was a fifth-round pick last year? Is it Grayson Murphy because he's the best pure pass rusher on the team, even though he has the ultimate outlier amount of length? It's an interesting storyline to me. But I think it's great perspective from Jaelan Phillips when you consider, hey, we get some five-star guys here who didn't have to refine our crafts until we get to higher levels. We got is some elite physical traits and length and physicality in Bradley Chubb. Grayson Murphy learned early to be a cerebral pass rusher because he had to, because of his physical limitations. And if you're athletic enough, you can make that work. And that's where I'm really interested to see how Grayson Murphy progresses from here. That is going to do it for us here today on the show. I'm Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back again tomorrow for a little bit more Miami Dolphins football talk coming your way. Go Fins.